If you live in America and you don't want to socialize with anyone in this country, I do not blame you. Because here in the States, you are trained from a very young age to be as selfish, as cruel, and as obnoxious as you possibly can be. Because there is no room here for empathy, for understanding, for generosity, for openness of spirit, for temperance of the vices, for control of one's emotions. There is no room for that. See, here in America, if you illustrate, display any of those qualities, you are looked at as someone who could be preyed upon. Because in America, it is a dog-eat-dog world. It is survival of the fittest. It is Darwinistic to the very core. Sure, there's a social safety net, but that is a mere illusion, especially when you consider that there are many efforts going on right now to reduce that social safety net. I just picked up somebody 2 weeks ago who told me their monthly benefit that was $300 got cut to $80 on a whim. No notice, no warning, no nothing. Just had their monthly benefit cut by 75% nearly. I think that's going to hurt. I think that's going to sting. I think that's going to put a hole in the budget for that month. That's a real problem for that person. And he told me that everybody else who went down to the same office to get their monthly benefit had the same thing happen to them, to either greater or lesser degrees. Sure, there's a social safety net, but it's waning. And even if it maintains its current stature, it's not enough to change the fundamental reality that if you showcase any characteristic that the ancients, that those from antiquity would revere, temperance of the vices, control of one's emotions, openness to new ideas, curiosity, kindness, generosity, empathy. If you showcase any of these traits here in America, you are looked at as someone who could be preyed upon. Because here, you must adopt the Machiavellian frame. The frame that says, I will get it done however I need to. The frame that says, the ends justify the means, because I am the main character here. I am the main character. Everyone else is a side character. They mean nothing. They are simply extensions of myself, narcissism, that I must play with, that I must manipulate in order to get what I want, whether that be TikTok followers, people to stream your streams on Twitch or Kick or Rumble, whether that be a brand deal, whether that be a boyfriend who is currently dating a good girl or a girl you just happen to have a vendetta against. Perhaps it's a girl who's currently dating a good guy, but you want to break them up. Perhaps you want a new position in the office you're currently working in, but the only way to get there is through some conniving means. The ends justify them because you are the main character here in America. Everybody else is ancillary. They're all extensions of you. Their arms, their legs, their toes, their noses. You manipulate them, you toy with them, and you play with them to get whatever you want. That's how you get places in America. Because everything that we claim to value, that we claim to revere here, things that we claim to value and revere because we hail from the Greeks and the Romans, the very wise Athenians, the very wise Romans, right? We hail from them, which is complete and utter nonsense if you do any of the history. But let's just assume it's true. We revere these ideas put forth by those two ancient cultures of Western civilization. We revere them only explicitly in words, only verbally, so that we paint ourselves in a good light. But underneath the surface, if you check underneath the hood, it's fuming. And it's fuming because there's smoke going off everywhere. There are flashbangs going off everywhere, literally now. There are grenades going off everywhere. There are bullets flying, backstabbing, deceit, brawls in the streets. That is America. Now, of course, in the 21st century, it is not quite as violent as it used to be. America used to quite literally be the Wild West. Even on the East Coast, it was a lawless land, a place where if you could get it done, you could get it done. Read Slavery by Another Name, and you'll understand just how much crime was committed in the former antebellum South post-Civil War. My word, will it make your head spin. It was completely lawless. Laws didn't exist. They were constantly put into place and then repealed. And then new ones would be put into place with slightly different language that meant the same thing and then repealed. And then even if they stuck, it didn't matter because people would take the law into their own hands. Vigilante groups, the Black Cavalry. Crazy times. So it's not quite as violent as it used to be physically, but it's more violent subtly underneath the surface. People are willing to say anything about you in order to slander your name. They don't care if it's true. They don't care if it has any credibility. Not one bit of evidence needs to be put before them in order for them to say it, because they know if it will get their base activated, they will do it. This is what Trump does better than anyone. He stirs up his base in a way that only Caesar could. He stirs up the populace in a way that only the greatest orators and the greatest political animals of all time have. Now, of course, he does anything he can to stir up his base. But you have to give him credit. He is successful in doing what he is planning on doing, which is getting his base activated, getting them fired up, and getting them ready to do his bidding, to support whatever he wants. He's amazing at it. But that goes from the top down to the bottom. It goes down to every last man, woman, and child here in America. Now, of course, I'm speaking in a generalization because there are plenty of people here who despise this sort of behavior, who despise how obnoxious people are, how they put themselves forth so brazenly, without reading a room, without trying to figure out what other people bring to the table, trying to sense where other people are emotionally, where they're at physically, whether they want such a brazen presence to be in the room. Well, of course, who cares what they want, because I need to make myself known. Act like a king and you will be treated like one. Law 35, I believe, of the 48 Laws of Power, which is the Bible of this country. Everybody read it once and they think they're a master strategist. They think they're a general akin to Napoleon. They think that they're a politician akin to Talleyrand. They believe that they're a courtier, much like all of the great ones from pre-revolution France. They think that they are historical figures now because they've read a book that Robert Greene wrote, which is an incredible book. But it certainly is not something to follow explicitly, word per word. It's not something to make a Bible out of. It's more so something to keep as a defense against the dark arts, so to speak. And if you read it once, you obviously haven't grasped it anyway. But alas, that's the Bible here in America. Because it's not about being a good Christian or a good Buddhist or a good Muslim. It's not about being a good Jew, a good anything. It's about being powerful, about having influence, about being able to sway the opinion of others. If you can say it to make somebody look bad, you will. If you can undercut them at work to make them look bad, you will. If you can announce your presence in some brazen way to take up all of the space, to suck the air out of the room, you will. Because that's what you're trained to do here in America. Playing small doesn't get you anywhere. It's a city of risk here in Chicago. It's a city of risk in New York, in Los Angeles. We willingly put ourselves in pressure cookers whenever we go to even more pressurized environments, such as those three cities, to try and make big names of ourselves. We go from pressurized to hyper-pressurized. For what reason, I'm not sure. Perhaps there's an addiction to adrenaline. Perhaps there's an addiction to power here in the Western being. Because regardless of what race you are Western now. Every bit of your culture will get stamped out of you here. I've seen it in way too many people. This isn't a diss against them. And if you maintain your culture, my kudos go out to you, because it is truly difficult here in America. It is a black hole of a country. When you come here, you are forced to conform. And people say all the time that people don't assimilate here. I would disagree. I see everybody's assimilating. Now, of course, there are some people that I run into that haven't. They maintain their culture. And like I said, kudos to them. I really do appreciate them bringing their culture, maintaining it, having that connection to where they're from. Because I believe it's far more powerful, and in many ways, if not all ways, it's going to be better for them. I can only imagine how much better they feel on a day-to-day basis practicing what they practice and living how they live in comparison to living how the average American lives. Full of narcissism, willing to practice deceit at any corner, at any opportunity, and in many cases, just for the love of the game. But I've seen far too many times that people from Mexico, people from Latin America, people from even Russia, but really any country that I've spoken to, Russia, France, Poland, Brazil, Colombia, it doesn't matter. They all assimilate to the American culture. They all assimilate to the selfishness. They all assimilate to the pop culture. They all assimilate to the news cycle. They all assimilate to the selfishness of career and popularity and influence above the influence that they could have on a community of a deeply entrenched group of people. They all assimilate to it. Again, generalization when I say all, but you understand what I'm saying. Pretty much everybody assimilates because it is a black hole. If you don't, you are cast aside. You are looked at as weak. You will be preyed upon by people who have assimilated to the point where now it is their creed. Get what they can, take what they can, be as powerful as they can, and screw everyone else. Because this is a land where you either make it or die trying. Yes, there is some romanticism in that. Yes, there is great art to be made from that. I channel it on a day-to-day basis. I'm not going to claim that I am different in that regard. If you listen to my music, you will hear it. But on a societal level, it is quite heavy, and it is a lot to deal with. So if you don't want to socialize with people in this country, I get it. Because it's very difficult to find people who don't think like this, who don't act like this, because it's programmed into you from birth. They strip away all of your positive characteristics, your empathy, your kindness, your generosity, your openness to ideas, your openness of spirit. And then later down the line, they teach you to never even consider being temperate with your vices or your emotions. If it feels right, do it. Don't question. Don't have any sort of logical conversation with yourself or argument with yourself, analysis in your brain. Just go with it. That's America. So if you don't want to socialize with people, I get it. However, as I said in any single video I've made on this topic, I still have hope. I still believe that the American people can be reached. I still believe that there are lots of great people to connect with here in this country that do not think this way, at least not completely, because everyone's been touched and tainted by this culture in one way or another. Without our consent, it has been done to us. I'm no different in this regard. I was born here. I was raised here. I've lived my entire life here. So I can only speak as an American. I have no real ties to my ancestry from Germany, from Ireland, from perhaps Spain and Italy, from various countries. I'm quite a mutt. I don't know the exact percentages, but I don't really have any real ties to that. So I can only speak as an American. I'm no different in this regard. But I can't say as somebody who has seen time and time again how destructive this culture can be, how violent it can be, how cruel it can be, and how detrimental it can be on both the personal and the communal level. And then, of course, at the societal, national level, that if you don't feel like associating with people, fine, don't. Be my guest. It will probably keep you more peaceful in many situations. But at the same time, I feel like it's a duty of mine to be social anyways, to try and move through this culture and shape it through right act, through right conduct, through right thinking, through all of those virtues that I listed prior, and many others. Because if I don't, who will? Anybody can, but I'm the only one who will try. At least that's how I'm viewing it, because I know I'm not the only one. But it's a way to think. It's a framework.